Okay, only one person is there so far. Two. So I guess we need to wait. All right, so we'll wait a bit. I'll just put a note in the chat.
No problem.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome on this World IP Day 2022. Thank you for joining us, the Association of Caribbean Copyright Societies, as we host this webinar on blockchains, NFTs, and digital currencies. As I mentioned, it is World IP Day, and it is themed this year focused on youth and innovation. So we wanted to explore a topic that, of course, is not only of interest to the youth, but it is, as they say, a trending topic. My name is Erica Smith. I'm CEO of COSCAP, one of the members of the ACCS. Joining me are Ms. Lydia Rose, General Manager of JCAP, which is the copyright organization in Jamaica. Ms. Melissa Zuniga, who is the General Manager of the Society of Copyright Organization in Belize. Mrs. Ayana Lewis, she is the CEO of the CMO in Trinidad and Tobago. Mrs. Heather Cunningham, who is chairperson of the Belizean Society, and Mr. Keen Cotter, who is the officer in charge at the regional organization for the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, ECHO. So thank you. ACCESS, the ACCS, is a regional organization that was established in 2001. And it advocates for the rights of copyright holders throughout the region. We have over 11,000 members. And we also, through the ACCS, acquire the technology used by the Caribbean copyright organizations. And the ACCS, importantly, is the entity responsible for all or most digital licensing in the region. So it is through the ACCS that we have a license, for example, with Facebook and one with Spotify. So in the digital environment, quite a bit has been centralized through the ACCS, primarily because of the high level of administration that is required for digital music licensing. Our speakers today are facilitators, I should say, and we want to treat this as a informal and interactive session. We have Mr. Jeremy Stephen, who is the immediate past chairman of COSCAP, at least in Barbados, and I'm sure in quite a few other territories. Jeremy is quite well known. He is a technology enthusiast and a blockchain advocate and enthusiast, amongst many, many other things, but he can speak about himself more. And then we have Gonçal Calvo, who is from Spain, Barcelona. He is with BMAT, which is a technology company that the societies in the region and many others throughout the world have been working with. I think COSCAP can proudly say we were their first copyright society client. So we've had quite a long relationship, and Gonçal is head of innovation. So those are two presenters. And I must admit that I kind of messed up today because I think the flyer says 3 and the Zoom link said 2:30. So forgive me, but the session is being recorded. And we will start with Jeremy. I have asked in the chat that you place your questions there or in the Q&A, and allow the presenters to do their presentations uninterrupted unless they indicate otherwise, just to allow for a good flow and to ensure that as much information is shared as possible. Other than that, thank you for joining us, and I hope you'll find it useful. So we'll start with Jeremy.
All right, good afternoon, one and all. I'm not as pretty or as handsome as Erica might be if she were a man, as she is now. So, and in the interest of actually saving bandwidth because of where I'm located, I'm opting not to actually show my face while talking, and it shouldn't really distract from the issue. A really quick thing here now about my background in blockchain technology. I was pretty much one of the first people that I know about in the Caribbean to become actively involved in it, from as far back as 2011, when I had my first Bitcoin. I bought it for 100 US, right? And the reason I bought it was due to the fact that I was entirely interested in this new technology. Now, allow me to share this presentation. So it gives me a bit of pleasure, or at least a reasonable amount of confidence that I can at least break down this technology as simply as I can today. And it's by using your own experiences. Now, I know, for instance, that most people do not understand blockchain technology, but yet they use the internet. And for a long time, it confused me as to why people didn't understand blockchain technology when literally it was a new form of internet. Then I recognized, you know what, Jeremy? Most people don't know what the internet really is. They understand it's a network of computers, but why do they trust it? Do they trust it because, well, there's more Caribbean people in here than not? Flow, which was pretty much Lime or even cable and wireless far back in the day, that they provided this reasonable service, so there was nothing to fear? Or did they trust in McAfee and Kaspersky and all of those cybersecurity services to secure their computer, and therefore all of a sudden they decided to upload a lot of information about themselves? I mean, with the exception of Erica, everybody puts almost everything personal on Facebook nowadays. So like, why are people trusting a system that is inherently faulty and in terms of transmitting information from one point to another, but they're afraid of blockchain technology? So the approach I wanted to take today is to let you really understand what a network is firstly, right? And then we move into what is blockchain technology. And the original network in human history was literally games like this that children played. In fact, just general communication between a number of human beings. And as you will see there, the children is right there in 1930s Harlem playing Ring Around the Rosies. This is a network. They're all going in the same direction because implicitly or by sight, they're communicating the direction in which they're going. And even by looking at this picture, each of us on the outside, each of us as peripheries can tell the direction in which these children are going. If you are saying they're going to the right, then I think something might be wrong with what you're seeing, but they're definitely going to the left. So interestingly, they're singing a song which helps them to know when to stop, when to start the game, when to resume, and who might be out if there was somebody to be out. So a network is nothing more than points communicating with each other. And as human history has gone on, because like you can go as far back as to the days of before the Bronze Age, where fire was used to communicate across large distances. So of course, human history is all about communication. Husband and wives would know this more than anybody else. Faulty communication or otherwise, it's based on communication. Now, the interesting thing is that the network that better or best represents the internet is via this game. And this is a game that most Caribbean persons I know for sure played in school, which was to pass a message or to wizzy or to, spread rumor, spread false information. And the fact remains that this lady here in the far left with the blue shirt, as far as she's concerned, whatever she says to the lady in the orange shirt would not be the message that the lady in the turquoise shirt hears. And why is this a problem? It shows that typically with networks, as information is passed along, you get different interpretations of it. Nowadays with with social media is a perfect example where I actually did not even think about this example as I was putting this together. During the 2018 elections in the United States of America, I'm forgetting 2017, 2018 elections, basically the elections that Trump was voted in on, you had cases where persons in America saw different types of ads on the social network depending on what their, identity was, who they were, where they lived, who they spoke to. So the problem with networks in general, even the internet, is that it is biased and information is faulty, right? In terms of who's receiving it. Of course, this is just a better representation for those in the room who might not know the game, which simply is you pass the message along and trust me, it changes. And funnily enough, with those old type of networks, with general networks, these games, human to human interaction, only makes sense if it's a small network. If it's you and one or two friends in the room talking, you pretty reasonably be sure that the message that might leave the room will be very close to what was said. And therefore, because it's small, it is easier for you to become part of this network, all right? But as I mentioned to you, communication is entirely faulty. And as soon as it leaves the mouth of the person who creates the message, creates whatever it is to be sent out there, you can guarantee that it's going to change somehow. The content will change somehow. As a result, it's very slow, and typically networks aren't to be trusted. What you receive will in some form be different to maybe what was sent. To put it in even clearer terms, when you send an email, I don't know how many of you know this, but at the typical networks, they're sniffed, they're intercepted, and people can, if it's not a security email, change contents on you. So like you can't 100% trust what you see on the internet or even human to human interaction. So the internet is basically, as far as people should be concerned, a network where there's a bunch of us in our homes and offices all across the world, essentially talking to some computers at our internet service provider. That's what the ISP is standing for. And the internet service provider takes the requests from our computers and our devices at home and in our offices, and they send them out to a bunch of name servers. I know this is going to sound complex, but the whole point is that the information is sorted by an ISP, and then you're able to access Netflix, YouTube, whatever you want as a result. But the key thing here is you have this one point or several points, because no two countries have the same ISP in exact terms. So there's Comcast in the United States of America, You know, in Brazil, there's Vivo. In the Eastern Caribbean, the largest one is Flow. There would be Orange in parts of Europe. So like there's these different services that, of course, provide us with our mobile phone packages, but they sort information out of your homes or even on your phones, and basically they return to you your websites. So this pretty much has the same issue as I was highlighting before, where the network is very centralized and there's going to be faultiness in terms of what is delivered back to you. In other words, it is entirely decided by an ISP, all right? Believe it or not, that is an issue in terms of trust, because as the fake news debacle has been showing, can you trust even your ISPs? Can you trust the websites to deliver information in the way you want it? Are you sure or reasonably certain that you're receiving the same information as somebody else who lives next door, even to you? You never are with these networks. And the internet is more complex than even that. I just wanted to put this presentation in front of you just to show there's a bunch of different points all across the world, like intranets, local area networks, that's like inside your office, and they're talking to the ISPs, and the ISPs is routing all of the requests that you want, all of the websites you want to visit through a bunch of servers and routers on the internet, interacting with the digital domain system. There should be a pointer somewhere here so I can show this, because I'm not certain if you guys are seeing where I'm pointing. Can you guys see my mouse or no?
Yes, we can.
So then the domain name servers, and all this information then is routed back to you, all right? It's a complex network of sorts. So here's the thing. In terms of pros now of general networks as we use them, it's much better if you have a central person than the old model, which is you talking to each person, you're hoping that the information that is passed along is consistent. But you've got this centralized resource, your ISP, that is sorting the information for you and is supposed to return back to you the most secure and timely information. On top of that, on the internet, you've got these cybersecurity providers in the form of Cisco, McAfee, Kaspersky. Any of you that have that software on your computer knows what I'm talking about. And they are obviously working in tandem with ISPs and different services to protect you from bad information being sent to your computers. By having that centralized model where the ISP is responsible for sending information all over the place and returning sites to you, it's faster than the old model where you have to wait for the next person, the next person to communicate something. And it's more trustworthy than that older model, but it's not entirely trustworthy because the ISP and also the content providers like Facebook, Netflix, and whatnot can decide based on your own demographics how to treat you and to send information to you in that way. But let's even talk about the commercial banks and whatnot. They could decide who they want to do business with and make it more expensive for you to do business with them simply because, well, these networks tend to be rather costly. And yes, this is a lot of words. And they recognize there's a central point of failure, meaning should an ISP drop down, stop working, everything goes dead. So the investment in the type of technology that keeps these networks up is rather expensive. So therefore, to do business with businesses that provide content to you online becomes very expensive over time, if you get me, as a result of this. So now that I've explained networks, the most basic form of a network and what the internet is, pretty much you can see the most basic form of the network in something called ring topology, just to really make it graphically simple in terms of computers that speak to each other, but at no time, no two computers know the same thing. All right, so this is like the first model where this computer sends a message to this one and this one and this one and this one and this one. you already know what the issues are with that. Because by the time this information gets over here, who's to trust that this guy and this guy and these guys don't change the content of the information that is sent, right? The modern internet is star topology, where you've got that centralized resource that controls all the content that is coming to you from the internet. Of course, I pointed out the benefits in terms of speed. Everybody's putting in their requests. This is built to handle all those requests, the ISP. And the hope is that the ISP and the content providers on the internet are sending back to you information as you wanted it. Blockchain technology actually uses a concept that never was entirely achievable for two reasons. And blockchain technology is nothing more than a network that is fully connected, this one. And you can clearly see this is a combination of three networks. The ring around here. So in other words, computers can speak directly to each other, right? But they also are using the star topology in that they can talk to each other through a central point almost. And then they're using mesh as well. So it is the most complete form of network that ever was achievable. But originally it was thought to be too expensive to build until Bitcoin came along. So I'll go through all of this right now. All blockchain is a bunch of computers and other devices that speak to each other directly. You don't have to, because there's some blockchains that do go through intermediaries, which doesn't really make it a blockchain in the truest sense. But essentially, you don't need to have an intermediary to validate content. Essentially, let me go back here. Everybody on this network validates the content that is set on the network. So if this guy, if this guy over here wants to send a message to this computer over here, because of how the network is built, at the same time that is sent, everybody else is aware of what he said. It sounds a bit pervasive, right? But it is rather helpful. And it was originally seen to be expensive or too expensive to achieve. So essentially then, in order to stop, like what is sent out there is encrypted information. So like anything that's sent to him is encrypted so that only he can decrypt it. And in a blockchain, when this guy decrypts it, in other words, changes it from all of this mishmash stuff that when you try to read an encrypted piece of information, it looks like undiscernible. It's not discernible at all. When he receives it and he decrypts it, then everybody becomes aware of what the contents were. So it's only after this guy is aware of what is said to him that everybody else becomes aware on the network. So again, the information is encrypted and everybody knows what's going on at the same time. All right, that's what the last point is about right there. So Bitcoin uses a form of blockchain technology that utilizes something called a distributed ledger. All a distributed ledger is, let me show you back using this model again. All a distributed ledger, think about accounting. Ledgers are when you keep, to really keep it simple, money coming in on one side, and on the other side of the ledger, expenses, right? It's the most simple form of accounting. Each computer on the blockchain has a ledger. And that ledger does two things. It gives you an idea of if, let's say, this guy here has received more Bitcoin, for example, than he has spent. The difference between those two is what is said that this computer, or it's said that this computer has that amount of Bitcoin on it, which is erroneous. Really, it's just a ledger. Likewise, everybody is aware of that ledger. And also, everybody is aware of how much Bitcoin has been created and how much has been spent. But what really is Bitcoin? It is nothing more than a ledger. And what causes changes in that ledger? Messages sent throughout the network from each device. So very simply, Alice has her ledger. If Alice wants to send 1 Bitcoin to Bob, so to use accounting terms, she wants to debit Bob's account. In other words, Bob's revenue increases by 1 Bitcoin. Then she will send a message to the entire network that says, hey guys, I have 1 less Bitcoin on my ledger, and Bob has 1 more Bitcoin on the ledger. But the catch is this, because this doesn't properly show the next stage. Bob has to have received that message first, right? And once Bob, and that message is encrypted, once Bob decrypts it, because it's sent using, getting fancy, no, asymmetric encryption, but it is sent using that, so only Bob can decrypt it. Once Bob decrypts it, then the network becomes aware of how much Alice spent and how much Bob has received. And once they're aware of it, they can actually check their copies of that ledger. And each of them have that copy. That's what is broadcasted as a message. And once everybody on the network, or let's say a significant amount of persons or computers on the network, have said, okay, we see this transaction, it seems legitimate, there's been no double spending. In other words, Alice has not spent anything she does not have, because it is assumed Alice had 1 more Bitcoin than she spent at the point of spending that 1 Bitcoin or transferring it to Bob's ledger. Am I being clear? So at that point, everybody here in the nodes can say, well, shucks, we see that this transaction did occur. We can see from past oil, because these ledgers have past transactions on them as well. We can see from the ledgers that Alice did spend Bitcoin that was credited to her in the past. So that's all a decentralized ledger is. And believe it or not, the message that goes out to the network looks a lot like an email. The only, all right, because most of us in here probably wasn't using email or using computers seriously when, you know, emails were just normal text files. We have Gmail, we have Hotmail, well, not really so much so Hotmail anymore, but we have several clients out there, Safari, whatever the case may be, iCloud, and they typically look graphically like this. But a message, any message that is sent between computers, even if it's in, I'm sounding fancy again here, no, packet form, which is when you're trying to send a message through your ISP that you want to get a particular website downloaded onto your browser so you can watch content. You know, even if it's in package form, it is a message. Every message sent between computers on a network is nothing more than 2 parts: the metadata and the body. What is important to the human eye is the body. In terms of a Bitcoin transaction, remember I said it's a message that goes up to the network. Wait, I just heard myself. Okay, great, thank you. So in terms of what goes up, remember everybody has the same ledger on their computers, and a message goes out that everybody knows about. After Bob, if you remember, Bob receives it, then a message goes out and the ledgers are updated on everybody's computer, everybody's phone. If you have a wallet on your toaster, if you have one of those internet connected toasters and you have a Bitcoin wallet, all a Bitcoin wallet is a place that you store these ledgers, right? So what the information that changes that ledger comes in the body, where it says essentially, I, Anne, forgot her name already, have debited on my account 1 Bitcoin and have credited Bob's account 1 Bitcoin. That's the information sent in the body. And this is where the next presenter is going to lead you off on in terms of NFTs. The information, this extra information I said, that isn't as important as the body. And that's the metadata. For emails or most messages, it's who sent it in terms of James Brown, to who is supposed to receive it, who else might be seeing that message, what the message is supposed to be about, and also hidden even inside of this, that's not obvious in most emails, are timestamps. So when it was sent, which servers or which services the message was sent through, and other things, which countries, all of that stuff, which browsers sent the message, which email services sent the message, a lot of this extra information that isn't as important to the recipient, but rather is important to the network or to any IT auditors who might want to track your movements or hackers. Yeah, that metadata is also sent and kept in the blockchain as well. And that metadata, again, once the next presenter speaks about it, is what gives value to NFTs. But we continue. So essentially, a transaction is nothing more than a message being sent. And what gives the blockchain an added amount of security over, for instance, wiring money at First Caribbean, or let's say you're wiring money to another person at First Caribbean International Bank, and you happen to have an account there. There's a few servers, not that many, that are responsible for ensuring that that transaction does happen. If you decide to send money to me, because I would love to be paid for saying stuff like this, and I happen to be at the same bank as you, your bank, and you did it electronically, you essentially send the message through your app or your computer via the website, via the app, whatever you choose to use. And the bank then says, all right, we see that. So one person, one entity says, hey, we see that. We're going to then put this money on Jeremy's account. But the question is this, like, who else can verify that that occurred? You have to trust, A, that I have received it, or on the odd occasion where, like in Barbados, servers go down at the wrong time, and the bank says they did send the transaction, but you can't see it. Who are you supposed to believe? Well, then it goes through a long, drawn-out process of verification of the transaction. The beauty of the blockchain is because so many different nodes all over the entire world are aware of the transaction, that should there be a problem in one country, say one country can't receive internet, it doesn't mean that records are lost, A, of the transaction, or they can't be approved, B, because this thing is global, or it has potential to be global, and it is random people like you and I, because we believe these things have money for some reason. I'll explain that in a bit. Random persons like yourself and myself who believe we can commit resources to the network. So essentially, all that happens with a transaction, right, on the blockchain, is that I decide to receive money. Let's say, for example, so here, I want to receive Bitcoin from someone. What happens? A block. So a block is literally a text file, which, let's interchangeably for this point, use it as a ledger or information about the ledger, is sent out. A block normally is like a number of transactions coming from a great number of places, but to simplify it, let's say a block is created. So basically a message that is sent to everybody in the network that I intend to receive X amount of Bitcoin from a particular person. The nodes then will go through their records, ledgers, or go through the blocks. The other computers, the phones, whatever, the software is there and it is done automatically without human interference. It automatically then checks to see, well, can that person afford to send Jeremy the money? Because you check the ledgers to make sure that they can do it. Good. On top of that, there's this mining process, and I want to explain mining a bit later on because I know everybody's heard about it. The nodes then mine, and mining is simply the process of taking that block of transactions, or in this case, that particular block of one transaction, that information and adding it to information or other transactions that have come before. This information is then sent back out to the network, the same nodes. So everybody in the network is aware of this new file, which involves past transactions and including the most recent one. Once this process is done, the network updates, and then it is seen that I received the Bitcoin that I asked for. So this is where blockchain comes from, this graph right here, where in order for the transaction to be seen as legitimate, essentially you use cryptology. This part is a little difficult to explain given the time, but essentially you must, or the network must have past records of transactions that occur. And when you're creating that new file that is distributed back out to the network, sent back out to everybody, like an email of the new set of transactions that have occurred, it should include the past transactions, just as you would update any file in your office as well. So essentially, you know, the whole, I'm going to get into mining, but the whole premise of a blockchain is somebody verifies that the transaction occurs, some random computer node, and you wait to see if somebody else or the remaining persons in the network, remaining nodes, also agree that the transaction was legitimate. So now all of a sudden you have no need for internal audits or auditors, but let's put that aside. I'm not here to take away anybody's job. So the process of mining is important. It is separate and distinct to this validation stage here. Separate and distinct. Validation is, all right, let's look through the ledgers and see if person A can afford to credit person B's account or send money to them, which is a message, right? Mining is a process by which you set in stone transactions that have legitimately occurred. So once the validators say, yes, all millions of us, for argument's sake, agree that this transaction can occur because we have access to all the past records of everybody through everybody's ledgers that has occurred ever on this blockchain. Then somebody has the sad responsibility of creating the official updated record. That is all mining is. So essentially, once a transaction is validated, the information is sent out to miners. Miners are essentially people with these very, very energy hungry computers, right? And this is only really with Bitcoin. There's several different mining and staking. There's different models out there. But to simplify, energy hungry computers that compete for the right to create a new official updated record that is then sent back out to everybody. And the energy expensive part is them solving for Bitcoin a puzzle. That puzzle becomes more difficult to solve the more transactions occur or the more Bitcoin that is created. And Bitcoin is created through a reward. So like for every miner who commits his computer to solving this problem, this puzzle, and gets then the chance to win the right to create this new official record, he has to be compensated somehow. So what the software or the network does, because the network is aware that this particular miner has won the right to create this record, is that then a new Bitcoin, or sometimes a new 12 Bitcoins, are created out of thin air, almost like real money, because that's how real money is created. And that miner's account is credited the 1 or the 12 Bitcoin, however much is created. And that is decided in a way that I don't want to explain. It's not nefarious. It's actually fairly simple as mathematical. But the point here is that's how new Bitcoin then is created. And the miner is not a clone. The miner is not going to hold on to Bitcoin all the time. The miner is going to want to sell Bitcoin for cash. So this thing, and the Bitcoin therefore is tied to the work, the proof of work that the miner put into gaining the right to add that block of transactions to the blockchain. So because there was value spent, in other words, electricity and all that was used, therefore, he has the right, and other persons buying Bitcoin from him would know that this process came through some money that would have been spent to pay electricity bills, whatever the case may be. That's the fundamental value of Bitcoin. That's where it gains value from that. And only will the software that is on all the nodes and the miners have it agree, according to the protocols, that only 21 million Bitcoin could ever be created. So the closer, because there's about 17, 18 million in circulation now. So the closer or the more transactions that do occur in terms of Bitcoin being transferred from node to node, and the more, as a result, the miners are rewarded for that activity, right? For the activity of adding in new blocks to the blockchain, then it simply means that it's going to become more difficult to get to that 21 million, because as I told you, the more Bitcoin that is created, the more difficult, the more difficult it gets to actually win the right to add new records to the blockchain. So because it becomes more difficult, it costs more because more electricity is used by the miners. Just as if you were mining a gold mine and you're getting closer and closer to the bottom of it, and it becomes more and more difficult to get to the bottom, the same concept. So as I said, the main value of Bitcoin is tied to the price of electricity. Everything else above it is just people speculating. So value is essentially then created by the fact that there's scarce resources used to keep the network running. That is, in the case of Bitcoin, electricity for miners, and then also to incentivize people to validate transactions. When you validate or you put your computer to validate transactions, you're also rewarded. That's what the fees are. If any of you have done a transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain, that's what fees are. And also because it becomes more difficult to create value on the network over time. As I told you, closer you get to 21 million Bitcoins being created, the more difficult it becomes for a miner to win the right to add to the ledger. It is also way more secure than any other form of network out there. That's why it's been very difficult to hack, because there's so many nodes and miners distributed all across the world that are aware of what everybody else is doing. So for instance, if any one node decided that it was going to change its record of the blockchain or the ledgers that have been out there, the network would be aware that that change has occurred and decide that, I'm sorry, I got slightly distracted there. So essentially then it would decide that the network would decide to kick that node off the network. And that's how you get new, like Bitcoin Gold and all of that. When somebody changes something about the network that the network doesn't want to be changed, then essentially a new network is born from that. But to simplify it, the node that does that, or the nodes that make those changes to the code for the software, anything like that, they're kicked off the network. So it's a security measure as well. And, again, metadata is important. It's not just the instruction to add one Bitcoin to Jeremy's account and take away one from Tamar's account for argument's sake. But, the information in the metadata would be, who sent it. And you could also, if you know how to program, you could write stuff in the metadata of any message. So that, funnily enough, that ability is what makes, although Bitcoin isn't tied to NFTs really, but the ability to change metadata or to add things to metadata is what really gives NFTs the core value that they have. On top of that, blockchains can be private or public. In other words, you can make it as anonymous. You can make the nodes as anonymous as you want, them to be, or like Bitcoin, it could be a hybrid. It's fairly easy to find out who sent whom Bitcoin because everybody has a public key, right? A public key is just an account, like for simplification reasons or simplified reasons. A blockchain looks at a public key as like an account number, right, for a device or for a wallet, a digital wallet. And in terms of cons, I mean, shucks, the scarcity is a problem. Scalability is a problem, sorry. The larger these networks that use proof of work, in other words, they use electricity to provide persons the right to add or create the updated records of the blockchain, then to be distributed to everybody else. You know, the fact that you use electricity, there's a finite amount of electricity that can be used from oil resources in particular before it becomes too expensive, all right, to operate. So like, this is the problem then with Bitcoin. Like, when there's a lot of transactions on the network and there's a lot of work then for the miners to do to win the right, because the more activity there is, the more difficult it becomes for a miner to win as well, to the right to update the blockchain.
Sorry, Jeremy.
I'm closing now.
Just okay, thanks.
I literally closing. This is the last slide. So yeah, scalability is a problem. It's costly to use and it's slower than the Visa and MasterCard networks typically, but it's getting better. And I end there.
Thank you. I know we have, I think, a question, but let's have Gonçal do his presentation, just bearing in mind the time difference for him. So Gonçal?
Yes, I share the screen. Let me check. Yeah, here. Okay. I hope you see it. Can you confirm?
We
Okay.
see it, we see it.
Full screen?
Yes, yes.
Fantastic. So first of all, it's a pleasure for me and for BMAT to be here and to talk a bit about blockchain and specifically what touches the consequences or the opportunities and challenge for the music business today. That's for IP Day. So thanks, Jeremy, a lot for all the context and the basics. So first of all, because it's I don't want to be very to spend a lot of time here, but just to make some context of why I am here. So as Erika, when she presented us, Coscap was one of the first customers of BMAT. BMAT is a music and audio technology company based in Barcelona. And what we do generally is music monitoring and reporting globally. So we listen to every time a song is broadcasted or played in a venue or digitally streamed, etc. So royalties can be distributed accordingly. And we are a trusted source of music usage data. So artists are compensated as deserved. Okay. We are in a bunch of countries, more than 200 people working currently with this mission to make the music ecosystem fair, more efficient, and transparent. So our customers are mainly collective management organizations all around the world, but we also work with record labels, publishers, DSPs, etc., even with broadcasting groups in all over the world. In the region, we partner with all these PROs you see here. So we are familiar with all of you. And what's the vision of BMAT? It's becoming a music operating system. What does that mean? It's a fancy way of saying that BMAT wants to be a layer that hides all the complexities of the music industry and connects all the parties to make their life easier. We provide services to all the parties in the music rate system, societies, publishers, labels, TV and radios, clubs, and digital services to make the information, the data flow. Okay, but today let's explain a bit what can be the role of blockchain in all this. So I found this funny definition. what's blockchain? Everything you don't understand about money combined with everything you don't understand about computers. And yeah, maybe now, thanks to Jeremy, we understand a bit better what blockchain is. But the truth is that we don't care much what the technology is, because we listen to the radio or we watch the TV and we don't know how a transistor works and we don't care, no? And with blockchain will be a bit the same. Truth is that it has some hype, no? So people likes to talk about the technology itself, but at the end, what is important is the applications that it will enable. And if you see here in this hype cycle from Gartner, non-fungible tokens are on the summit of this peak of inflated expectations. And what it comes next is true of disillusionment, no? And little by little, we will find out what's that for and what is going to give value and be useful in real life. So now these are very early years. And for some use cases, there's traction. We have seen Bitcoin. No, normally if you think of blockchain now, automatically you think of Bitcoin, etc. But it has other use cases and applications. So little by little, we'll find out. You can see here, no, blockchain technologies can be useful for things like data validation, data access sharing, identity protection, payments, etc. No, access to IP, revenue sharing, tokenization. So lots of things. In the music, well, music industry has been disrupted every now and then. No, we had the vinyls, and then we digitalized the music with CDs, etc. And then we had music as a service with streaming platforms. And then blockchain, what we'll do is to manage the value that we are creating by consuming assets, digital assets in the internet. No, then we will add, or are being added, no, some features thanks to artificial intelligence, etc. No, that will power this. But basically, what blockchain will do for us is to manage the value of the what we consume here. No, so we make sure that everything can be compensated as deserved. So we have information in the internet. No, you go to Wikipedia, you connect to Netflix, etc. You consume content, but that's it. No, blockchain, be it other technologies, will try to ensure that there are transactions and the value is preserved. Okay, so for the music use cases, we can think of a bunch of applications. For example, how about distributing royalties automatically with all the splits, no? Or creating decentralized organizations acting as PROs, no? Or NFTs. You probably know what an NFT is. Jeremy hasn't been in depth with that, but well, it's about creating digital scarcity. No, you have only one Picasso, no, in one museum, and you want to visit it, and you pay for that, and if you want to buy it, you pay a lot. But in the digital domain, you can have copies of the same digital asset, and that depreciates the value of it. No, with NFT, which is a non-fungible token, you assign like a token to that digital asset that it allows you to track it, no, and to create scarcity. And the owner of that NFT can say that he owns the property of that digital asset. It's a bit weird for us probably, but it will come very natural to our kids, perhaps. No, it's a change of mindset. This is not possible today with the traditional technologies, but thanks to blockchain and this kind of distributed ledgers, we can create this digital scarcity on the internet domain. So there are plenty of
Gonçal,
yeah.
I don't know if the audience fully understands when you speak of creating scarcity. I know
Okay.
Jeremy also spoke about it, but if you could just break that down a little.
Perfect. Don't hesitate to stop me, at any time if you want to explain a bit more some concepts. So digital is, so yeah, you can have copies of, you have a picture of yourself and you can have multiple copies. You have a song that is being recorded and then uploaded to the internet, and any exact copy of it will be the same, indistinguishable. You can have two files, you just copy paste them, and then you have another copy. So the fact that there are multiple copies around makes it accessible to everyone, but at the same time it makes it lose value, because I don't care if I have I can make a screenshot and I have the same picture as you have. You have bought a very expensive digital painting with this NFT, but if I can enjoy a digital copy, which is exactly the same as you, which is the point, the point is that you will have a certificate of ownership. This change of paradigm is what is difficult for us to grasp, to understand. And these are early days, and many implementations of NFTs are not very well done, because at the end, most of them point to a server belonging to the platform that contains it. And if that platform goes bankrupt or whatever, probably the content will disappear. But these implementations will be improved, and more solid use cases and applications will appear. At the end, what all is it about is about ensuring that we preserve the value of the content that we share digitally in the internet. We will see. We will bring this to earth with some examples. Here, this is a schema of what the music industry looks like. On the one side, on the left, we have the creators, copyright owners, creators, etc. And on the opposite, we have the users. And all this is about transactions of rights and data in exchange for money. Okay, so the creators create the content, they assign the rights to them, and then they receive money every time it is used. For example, Spotify streams a song for a user, and the creator will be compensated. Okay, so this is happening more and more in the digital domain. Before we played a vinyl or whatever, and nobody knew. Now every play more and more can be digitalized. For example, in streaming, or there are other ways. For example, BMAT monitorizes the usages, the airplays, in TV and radio, thanks to fingerprinting technology. In this schema, there are three elements: the assets, the rights, and the money, and then the data that explains when a broadcast or a consumption has happened. Okay, so it is a perfect playground to experiment with the blockchain technologies, because it is all about transactions and ensuring that the value is preserved. Okay, you can see in the middle that there are several. There's a layer of, well, they are performing. There are the PROs, the CMOs, and also aggregators, online licensing hubs, companies like BMAT that are intermediating to ensure that creators are compensated. No, with blockchain we can automate a lot of that part, because blockchain means that some actors can be disintermediated, no? Because most of the transactions can be automated. Let's see an example. No, how so royalty distribution is very inefficient. Here you have a picture of two databases for a given song, and with different shares of the same song, meaning that there's unmatched copyright data. Royalty distribution is very slow, it's expensive, there's content unmatched across several systems, there's unidentified right owners, inconsistent right data, right ownership data, as you see here. So at the end, what it results that royalty takes months to be distributed, and around 25% is estimated that are never paid. Okay. So there are two main focus here. One is how can we streamline the distribution of royalties, and how can we better manage copyright? And blockchain has been identified as an enabling technology, an opportunity to ease some of these industry problems, or circumvent them. No, we can create a new streaming service peer-to-peer, no, where consumers and users are automatically connected, where you pay for your usages, and the copyright owner receives the money directly without passing through the other actors, disintermediating. It is a challenge as well, because here we have, no, and there are some news saying that these audios, this platform is a nightmare, copyright nightmare, because no, one of the properties of blockchain is that it's immutable. No, you can upload their music, and you don't erase it if it's not properly curated. So perhaps some copyrights can be bypassed, etc. No, so it's complex, but lots of new possibilities are opening up. Here I will talk about some experiences we had at BMAT with blockchain, thanks to its properties. One is when streamlining distribution of royalties, we did a proof of concept with Revelator, which is a digital distributor, and Tiosto, the Finnish performance right organization, where we demonstrated that we could deliver royalties in hours, in minutes if you want, instead of years. That happens sometimes when there are international transfers, no, between societies, etc. How come? So the fact here is that we have a monitoring platform, BMAT, was listening to radios being monitored, and then also the Finnish performance right organization had the statements, the copyright picture digitalized in a blockchain, okay, through a smart contract. And a smart contract is nothing else than a piece of software that is executed every time a number of specified conditions are met, okay, allowing to automate, for example, in this case, payments, no, with the shares of the copyrights for a given song, okay, and then each artist or copyright holder has a wallet, a digital wallet. So anytime the platform knew that a song was played on radio, money was automatically distributed to the copyright owner. Okay, this was like digitally and magic, very, very easy. So it's a proof of concept, but we will get to that at some point. How can we do it? Because we have platforms that can digitalize the airplays, no? You can listen to the radios and be sure that what has been played, or also processing the digital consumption in DSPs. And then for copyright management, okay, you say, okay, you're automating payments, but if you know about how copyrights are in the music industry, it's messy. So before automating royalty distributions, you have to make sure that the copyright picture is okay. And this is another project demonstrating another use case where we thought how could we build a blockchain-based approach as an alternative to a centralized database of music rights. It has been attempted many times and always failed. No? So imagine a place where you could push the copyright picture of your songs, and instantly every node, all the people in the network can have a copy of that truth, no? Because blockchain is a distributed database, no? That is immutable, so no one can cheat. And maybe you don't trust the other persons in the network, but you don't care because the environment cannot be cheated. Okay, so you push information there, and you are sure that nobody is going to change that information. So imagine a place where you could publish the copyrights, the splits of an asset, in this case a song, and then the system through smart contracts, for example, can see if there are conflicts, if there are counterclaims. No, I say this song is mine, and perhaps another actor can say, oh, this is mine in a 90%, and I say that this is mine in a 20%. That doesn't add up 100%. There's a conflict, must be solved. So we imagined a platform where you could resolve conflicts and then be sure that the copyright pictures were okay without conflict, so we could automate the payments for the copyright pictures that were okay. What was the benefits of doing this? So thanks to blockchain, transparency. Any interested party, any node can be part of the system and check the status of their digital assets. Traceability, because any change in the copyright status is registered. Remember, no, a blockchain, it's a chain of blocks, a chain of messages. You can go through the history. And decentralized, because nobody owns the DB. Anyone contributing to the blockchain has a copy of it, and you don't need a central point of failure. No, it's distributed. This database is distributed. We had tools for conflict resolution, since there's a place where everyone put their knowledge there. Everything is connected and in sync, okay, in synchronization, and efficient, because doing that you reduce marginal cost of intermediaries in the value chain and all the inefficiencies. But still, no, you might thought, okay, what if somebody's cheating and saying no? A troll can be a troll in that network, no? Who validates copyright claims? Who resolves the disputes? It's not all about technology. It's also about thinking about good workflows. No, any technology can be used in several ways, so we have to think of smart ways of applying it. No, it's not all about magic, blockchain, magic word, and everything will work. We need to design it well. And finally, I want to talk about Identiart, which is an R&D project where we are building a decentralized and distributed music platform, combining a bit all this focus. No, we had streamlining distribution of royalties, copyright management, end-to-end streaming platform. What for? So a place where artists can register their works and rights, okay, and then users can get easy access to created licensed content, okay? Users like restaurants, discotheques, or streaming it at home or in a venue. And then performing right organizations can distribute royalties accurately and efficiently. This can be for the user can be very simple. the UI, the website doesn't show blockchain anywhere. It's transparent for them. The magics happen in the back end. So apparently you are interacting with an application, very common and so on. But the engines are using blockchain technology. What's that for? So what's the value of offering that? So we have thought that we need to facilitate CMOs, the management of copyrights and licensing of local repertoire with high efficiency and promoting trust in the initiative. Not everyone has access to DSPs and to the data they provide and so on, and why you should trust others. No, can we have a system that can be deployed in a trustless environment, because you don't have access to private data from others. But if the system can ensure that everything in there cannot be cheated, that would be awesome. So we are providing an environment where local producers make available their content and receive a fair remuneration for their uses. Then users like local public venues can buy a license and consume the music available. And then CMOs from different countries in the region can collaborate in the promotion of local content and distribution of royalties in a more automated and transparent way. How, you would say? So local producers are authenticated by the CMO, and then they register and upload the content, and the licensing conditions are stored in a smart contract on a blockchain. Okay, you decide how do you want to share this, and you are the owner or not. And then the users can buy minutes, for example, of the music, acquiring tokens, and then can stream the audio files that are made available to them. The CMOs are gatekeepers that ensure that content copyrights are free of conflicts. No, so then each play is registered in the blockchain and is auditable, and tokens are automatically distributed to the rights holders. Then their CMOs can distribute the royalties according to their own distribution rules. I don't know if we have time, Erica. This 3-minute video about a demo of the platform we are building right now. We can, I can
Gonçal, just go ahead. If people can stay, they'll stay. If not, they'll leave, but it's being recorded, so.
Super. So mainly here we have three kind of users: a provider, an administrator, and a consumer. And as a provider of content, I can add a song here with all the metadata, which Jeremy has explained. Metadata is very important because this will tell what's in the blockchain, what are the properties stored in there, and you can add the licensing info. For example, we are making it available for Germany for a certain period of time. You can upload the file that will be associated to that metadata, and some information that will help them discover the music, the digital asset in the system, in the network. Okay, for example, the country of origin of that song, the genres, etc. This is good for discoverability. Okay. Important thing is here that we are uploading that song to a blockchain. You are not uploading it to a server of a centralized point, but you are spreading that file in the network, and then anybody that has access, permissions, has a license to use that song, here it is, will be able to stream it. Okay, so now if we are logging as a user, then we can search for that song and stream it. Okay, then you can see that the metadata that the provider put is available in there for people. And once you stream it, this stream is being recorded in the blockchain, meaning that from now on you can tell for sure that this stream has happened. The user, the provider, the CMO, anyone can be sure that that song has been broadcasted. Now, if I log in as a CMO administrator, I can check for the market share of that song in that period of time. No, so I will go to that song and check if it has been streamed. And yeah, it had one stream, no, that accounts for 10% of the market share. If we had 10 streams in that period, we change the period, the market share changes. So what that means is that when they are going to distribute the money, they are going to do it according to that amount of streams, no, which automates the way of distributing the royalties that are due. And could be this done without blockchain? Yeah, but what does it mean? That you should trust, you must trust all the actors there. With that technology, you don't care. Perhaps you are a creator in the other side of the wall and you upload a song in that system and you don't care if you don't know that CMO, that user, whatever, but all the information that will be stored there will be true for sure. So what are we going to achieve with this? Direct distribution channel for creators with the help of CMOs. Transparency and fairness in the distribution process of royalties, and instant reporting of music usage in the platform for fast distribution. And what about the future? Because this has to, to mature and as technology, and also legal frameworks and so on are improved. So music copyrights in that paradigm will be exquisitely treated. No, we will create a new engagement channel for customers, for consumers, and we will preserve the value of consumed audiovisual assets. We have been talking about music, but this could be applied to audiovisuals or even to pictures, etc. So we are building that, and pilots are running during the second half of this year. You can join the pilots, write Erica, write me, and we want your participation in that project to make it a success. And then you can explore blockchain from the inner side. And thank you a lot. If you have questions, I'm available now, or you can write a mail here to myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Gonçal. I see the C note has been taken a step further. So we'll take questions. There was a question earlier by Tamar in the chat, and I think that might have been for Jeremy, where she asked about the use of electricity. So is Jeremy still there? Do you want to take Tamar's question?
Well, I need to be able to see it. I can't see it.
Let me, sorry. So Tamar asked, if Bitcoin is tied to the value of electricity, how does increasing reliance on renewable sources of energy affect the value of Bitcoin?
Well, as I said, that was a critical input. It's not the only input into the price of Bitcoin. The economics or the tokenomics behind it is based on scarcity. So it is also a function, TMR, of network use, how many people plan on buying in and trading. It is also a function of what the miners want to charge, because really, as it gets more expensive, you expect fewer and fewer miners participating, and they're going to obviously increase the price of what they are selling, which is Bitcoin. Is also a function of speculation. So even if, for instance, renewable energy is seen as a cheaper alternative, you got two considerations on top of the others that I just mentioned, and it has a lot to do with output per square mile. You get a greater output per square mile, if you could really term it that way, from oil sources of energy. as opposed to renewable at the end of the day, because you got things like you got greater loss on the system. Anytime it turns to night, you're not charging. And then on top of it, battery replacement costs for storage is rather high. Every 5 to 7 years, you need to, well, before Elon Musk changed up some of the battery technology recently, you could only get 5 to 7 years before you got critical issues, even on larger projects. So the output you're getting overall means that if you had to do a solar farm over time, you end up charging, yes, less, but the output you get per square mile is a lot less. So I don't think the savings are going to be that considerable where all of a sudden you see Bitcoin's price crashes below $30,000, to be honest.
Okay, thanks, Jeremy.
No problem.
Gonçal, I want to ask you to do us a favor. So it's not a Bitcoin query. It's actually about the Vericast system. Because you mentioned, and I acknowledge that we've been working with BMAT for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned the technology. We have been for years now trying to get more uptake in the use of the Vericast system. And I ask if you can just explain to our audience how that helps in terms of royalty payments.
Sure.
Because we can't seem to get the message out. So if you can just explain specifically the Vericast system quickly,
Yeah.
I would appreciate it.
Super. Yeah, sure. So that's the first step, no? In all that, we, in order to be paid, machines have to know, because everything is going to be automated. So reports are being done by all these computers that listen to radio streams, TV streams, now VOD, and also stream platforms. And for that to be done, we need to digitize the asset. No, we need it to be loaded into the system. So first of all, what we need is your music. How does this work? So Vericast, it works with fingerprinting technology. Fingerprinting is just calculating the hash, or simply understanding how a song looks like, and then comparing it to the streams that are being broadcasted. So we do this, the computers in Vericast do this comparison 24/7. And then when they found a match, very similar to how Shazam works, okay? They lock this usage in the system. And then CMOs use the report generated by Vericast to distribute the royalties accordingly. But if we don't have your music, then the machine doesn't know, is not aware of it, and cannot report it back. Okay, so that's why it's so important that all the repertoire is well connected, well uploaded. We are connected to thousands of digital distributors, but it's super important, for example, that local repertoire is well represented, because major content we get it every day. But we need all the music to be, to distribute royalties in a fair way. We need both. We need the audio file and the metadata that describes it well, because this is at the end what you will see in the reports, and then it has to be matched back to the members' database, in the society. So that's a very important point as well. Metadata has to be accurate and complete.
So thank you for that, Gonçal.
Okay.
So I'm very aware of the time, so I'm not going to keep you very long. What I want to say is that not only does it help us the copyright organizations to be able to pay royalties more accurately. It also means that if enough of our members provide the recordings so they can be fingerprinted and uploaded to the database, it reduces our reliance on logs from radio and television stations. We would have the information directly from the Vericast system. It also means we'll be able to do distributions a lot faster. And something a lot of people don't realize is that this system, if we have the play information, hello?
Yep.
Sorry, my screen just did something strange. If we have the information, we are then able to do charts, music charts, based on accurate information. And we very much want to introduce regional music charts, but to do so in a reliable way, we need the Vericast system, the use of it to be optimized. So I just wanted to take a couple minutes to explain that. But we are well over time. So I don't know if there are more questions, but Gonçal gave his email. And Jeremy, do you want to share your email?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, you can always.
Cost cap for sure, though.
Yeah, you can reach Jeremy via CostCap. And you can email me at Erica, ERICA @costcap.org. You can reach out to any of my colleagues at the other CMOs. They also have contact with Gonçal. And any questions you have, we will distribute the recordings and the PowerPoints. I know it's a big subject and it can be very technical, but I think if you review the recordings, you know, it will become a lot easier to understand. I think Jeremy did a really good job breaking it down. And Gonçal certainly showed all of the innovation, all of the possible use cases for this new technology. And thank you once again for your interest, and happy World IP Day. So take care and we'll see you soon. Bye.